Good morning. Let me say something that might completely change how you think about aging alone, because what I'm about to share with you is not what your doctor probably told you at your last checkup, and it is certainly not what the mainstream health industry wants you to know. If you are a man over 60 living on your own, or if you love someone who is, the next several minutes could genuinely change the trajectory of the rest of your life. Here is the shocking truth. According to a landmark study published by the National Institute on Aging, men over 65 who live alone face a 45% higher risk of accelerated physical and cognitive decline. But here is the part of that same study almost nobody talks about. The men in that group who adopted 5 specific lifestyle practices didn't just close that gap. They actually outperform married men their age on nearly every major health metric: strength, memory, cardiovascular endurance, emotional resilience, every single one. Today I am walking you through exactly what those 5 practices are, ranked from surprisingly helpful all the way up to what I consider the single most powerful thing an older man living alone can do for his health. I want to tease one thing before we begin, because I don't want you clicking away before we reach number 1. The top item on this list is something almost every senior man is currently getting wrong, not because he's careless, but because he was handed outdated advice, possibly by a well-meaning physician, possibly decades ago. Fixing it could add functional, independent, high-quality years to your life. Stay with me to the end. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something directly, and I mean this genuinely. I read every single comment on this channel. Drop your age below right now and tell me, do you live alone? Or are you watching this for someone you care about? I want to know who is in this room with me today, because this content is made for you specifically, and your story matters to this community. I am Dr. Adewale Morgan, and I have spent over 2 decades working with older adults in clinical and surgical settings. I have watched what decline looks like up close, and more importantly, I have watched what thriving looks like, and I want that for every man watching this. Let's get into our countdown. Coming in at number 5. And this one surprises almost every patient I share it with. The profound and measurable impact of morning sunlight exposure on the aging male body. I know what you're thinking. Sunlight? That's the big revelation? But hear me out, because the science here is far more sophisticated than a simple "go outside more" message. And what researchers have uncovered specifically about older men living alone is remarkable. A study from the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in California found that consistent morning light exposure, natural outdoor light within the first 90 minutes of waking, directly regulates your circadian rhythm, the body's internal 24-hour biological clock. After 65, that clock starts to drift, losing precision the way an old wristwatch loses time. And when your circadian rhythm is off, everything downstream goes wrong. Cortisol spikes at the wrong times. Testosterone production drops. Sleep quality deteriorates. And inflammatory markers, the chemical signals of aging and disease in your blood, climb. Here is why this matters so much for men living alone specifically. Researchers at University College London found that socially isolated older men had significantly more disrupted circadian rhythms than their partnered counterparts, largely because they lacked the external scheduling cues that come from sharing a household: mealtimes, conversation, shared routines. These are circadian anchors. When you live alone, you have to build them intentionally. I had a patient, I'll call him Raymond, 73, a retired electrician from Knoxville, Tennessee. Raymond came to me complaining of fatigue, low mood, and what he described as just not feeling like myself anymore. His blood work was unremarkable. His heart was strong. But Raymond hadn't been outside before 10 a.m. in years. He'd wake, make coffee, watch television, and drift through his morning in dim indoor light. We made one change. Every morning, Raymond sat on his back porch for 20 minutes right after waking, coffee in hand, no phone, no television, just him and the morning sky. Within 6 weeks, Raymond told me he was sleeping better than he had in a decade. His energy returned. His mood lifted. The science explains why. Morning light suppresses melatonin at the correct biological time, triggers a precise cortisol awakening response, and sets off a hormonal cascade that improves everything from insulin sensitivity to testosterone rhythm throughout the day. The practical application is simple. Within 90 minutes of waking, Spend at least 15 to 20 minutes outside in natural daylight, not through a window, since glass filters the specific wavelengths your brain needs. Pair this with morning movement or a walk, and you get a synergy effect. Stanford research has shown that combining light exposure with mild physical activity in the morning amplifies the circadian benefit by up to 60% compared to either habit alone. Moving to number 4, anabolic resistance, a term I want you to understand because it sits at the center of why older men living alone so often struggle with muscle and energy in ways they can't quite explain. After about 65, your muscles become less responsive to protein. Think of it like a door that used to swing open easily when protein knocked, and now sticks. You can eat the same amount of protein you always did and get significantly less muscle-building benefit from it. Research from the University of Texas Medical Branch found that men over 70 require up to 50% more dietary protein per meal to stimulate the same degree of muscle protein synthesis as a 30-year-old man eating the identical meal. 50% more. And the tragedy is that most older men eat less protein than they did when they were younger, not more. Because appetite declines with age, social eating drops off, and cooking for one can feel like too much effort. This is where men living alone face a particular disadvantage. Research from the AP Foundation's research division found that older men living alone consume on average 31% less protein daily than men living with a partner or family. That protein gap is one of the primary drivers of sarcopenia, the medical term for age-related muscle loss, a condition affecting an estimated 45% of men over 80 and directly linked to falls, fractures, loss of independence, and cognitive decline. I want to tell you about George, 78, a former high school football coach from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. George had watched himself shrink, not dramatically but steadily. His shirts fit differently. He couldn't open jars the way he used to. Climbing stairs left him winded. George thought this was just aging. It wasn't. It was preventable. We restructured his eating around one principle: distribute protein across all 3 meals rather than loading it into dinner. Research published in the journal Clinical Nutrition shows that evenly spreading 30 to 40 grams of protein across 3 meals is significantly more effective at combating anabolic resistance than eating the same total in 1 or 2 sittings. George started doing exactly that. Eggs and Greek yogurt in the morning, a chicken or tuna-based lunch, lean red meat or salmon at dinner. Within 4 months, his grip strength had measurably improved. He was opening his own jars again. More importantly, he told me he felt like himself. The synergy tip here is critical. Always pair your protein meals with a small amount of omega-3 rich food, salmon, sardines, or a quality fish oil supplement. Research from Washington University School of Medicine found that omega-3 fatty acids directly counteract anabolic resistance, essentially making that stuck door easier to open by enhancing the body's sensitivity to protein and reducing the low-grade inflammation that blunts muscle signaling in aging tissue. Scientific references, as always, are in the description below. Now we're at number 3, and I want to pause for a moment and ask you something. If this video is giving you real value, if you've already caught yourself thinking, I didn't know that even once, take 2 seconds and hit that like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this information reach more older men who genuinely need it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that now. We put out medically grounded content built specifically for men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and I don't want you missing a single one. Click subscribe, then let's keep going. Number 3 is something I personally consider one of the most underappreciated discoveries in gerontology: the science of sleep architecture in aging men. Here's what most people, including many doctors, don't fully appreciate. The quality of your sleep changes profoundly after 65, not just in duration, but in structure. Your brain cycles through light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. And deep sleep is where the real biological restoration happens. Growth hormone release, cellular repair, and memory consolidation almost exclusively occur there. Research from Harvard Medical School's Division of Sleep Medicine found that men lose approximately 60 to 70% of their deep sleep capacity between the ages of 40 and 70. By 75, many men are getting almost no meaningful deep sleep at all, even when they believe they slept a full 8 hours. Layer on the reality of living alone. National Sleep Foundation research shows that men who live alone report significantly higher rates of poor sleep quality than partnered men. due in part to reduced feelings of safety and security, irregular schedules, and elevated evening cortisol with no social buffer to bring it down. The consequences reach far beyond feeling tired. Chronic deep sleep deficit in older men is associated with a 36% increased risk of Alzheimer's disease, according to research from the University of California, Berkeley. During deep sleep, your brain activates its waste-clearing glymphatic system, which works like a biological dishwasher running at night. Without adequate deep sleep, toxic proteins like beta-amyloid and tau, the very proteins linked to Alzheimer's, accumulate in brain tissue. I had a patient named Harold, 70, a retired accountant from Portland, Oregon. Harold told me he never had trouble sleeping. And technically, he was right. He fell asleep fine and stayed asleep for 7 hours. But a proper sleep analysis showed his deep sleep was virtually absent. He was cycling through shallow sleep all night and waking exhausted, foggy, and emotionally flat. We made 3 changes. First, we moved his evening meal 2 hours earlier. Eating within 3 hours of bedtime significantly disrupts deep sleep architecture. Second, we lowered his bedroom temperature to between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Research from the University of South Australia has shown this range specifically enhances slow-wave deep sleep in older men. Third, we added a 30-minute walking routine after breakfast to regulate his morning light exposure and circadian anchor, which directly improves nighttime deep sleep quality. 8 weeks later, Harold described the change as transformative. His mind was sharper, and he was waking up wanting to engage with his day rather than simply endure it. The synergy tip for sleep: magnesium glycinate, taken about 45 minutes before bed at a dose of 300 to 400 milligrams, has been shown in clinical research from the University of Medical Sciences in Iran to significantly improve both sleep onset and deep sleep duration in older adults by activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Think of it as flipping the switch from alert and stressed to safe and ready to restore. Pair that with consistent sleep and wake times, even on weekends, and the compounding benefit is substantial. We are now at number 2, the fact I promised you early because it's something almost every older man gets wrong, and the consequences are serious. This is about strength training, but not the way you're picturing it. Specifically about fast-twitch muscle fiber loss, a phenomenon almost no mainstream health content addresses in men over 65. Here's the fundamental science. Your muscles contain 2 main fiber categories. Slow twitch fibers handle endurance, walking, standing, maintaining posture. Fast twitch fibers handle speed, power, and the kind of explosive strength you need to catch yourself if you trip, to get up off the floor if you fall, to carry groceries, to lift a grandchild. Here is the fact your doctor has almost certainly never discussed with you. After age 60, men lose fast twitch fibers at roughly 3 times the rate of slow twitch fibers. Research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden found that by age 75, some men have lost up to 40% of their fast twitch fiber population entirely. These fibers don't just weaken, they disappear. This is why falls become so dangerous for older men. It isn't only a balance problem, it's a reflexive power problem. When you start to trip, it's your fast twitch fibers that fire in milliseconds to correct your position. If those fibers are largely gone, the correction doesn't happen fast enough. Standard advice: walk more, stay active, addresses slow twitch fibers beautifully, but does almost nothing for fast twitch preservation. What does work? According to research from McMaster University in Ontario published in the Journal of Applied Physiology, is resistance training built around intentional speed of movement, lifting or pushing with deliberate force and intention, even when the actual load is modest. That brain muscle signal specifically recruits and preserves fast twitch fibers in a way slow, casual movement cannot replicate. Let me tell you about Walter, 69. A retired military officer from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Walter was fit by most standards. He walked 4 miles a day every day without fail. But Walter tripped on a slightly uneven sidewalk, fell, and it frightened him deeply. When he came to see me, his cardiovascular fitness was excellent. His fast twitch fiber function was not. We added 2 sessions a week of bodyweight resistance training. Nothing heavy, nothing extreme, but focused on movements done with deliberate speed and intention. Squats where he stood up fast, step-ups onto a low box, wall push-offs. Within 3 months, Walter's reactive balance, tested in my office with a simple perturbation test, had improved by a clinically significant margin. He told me he felt planted in a way he hadn't in years, like the ground was on his side again. The practical prescription: 2 resistance training sessions per week minimum, not 5, not 7. 2 is sufficient when done correctly. Focus on compound movements involving multiple joints. Squat patterns, push patterns, pull patterns. Perform the effort phase, the standing, the pushing, the lifting, with deliberate speed and intent. And pair this with your protein strategy from number 4. Research from Maastricht University in the Netherlands found that consuming 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein within 2 hours after resistance training specifically amplifies muscle fiber repair and preservation in men over 65 compared to any other timing window. These 2 habits together are your most powerful biological pairing. And now, number 1. The single most surprising, most impactful, most scientifically validated truth about older men living alone. The one almost nobody in mainstream medicine discusses with the urgency it deserves. Number 1 is the biology of social connection, and specifically, the devastating measurable physical damage chronic loneliness inflicts on the aging male body at the cellular level. I want to be clear. This is not a conversation about emotions, and I am not telling you to feel less lonely as a matter of mood management. This is hard, quantifiable cellular biology, and it is among the most striking research in all of modern gerontology. A landmark meta-analysis published in PLOS Medicine, drawing on data from over 3 million participants across multiple countries, found that social isolation and loneliness increase the risk of early mortality by 26%, an effect size comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes every single day. That is what chronic loneliness does to the aging body. But the mechanism is what I really want you to understand, because once you grasp the biology, you understand why this sits at number 1 and why the solution is urgent and specific. When the brain of an older man living alone perceives chronic isolation, it triggers a gene expression pattern researchers at the University of Chicago, led by neuroscientist Dr. John Cacioppo, identified as the loneliness transcriptome. That phrase simply means loneliness changes which of your genes switch on and off, upregulating genes tied to inflammation and immune overactivation, and downregulating genes tied to antiviral defense and tissue repair. Loneliness tells your body's genetic control room to prepare for threat and injury rather than maintenance and growth. Your body shifts into a chronic state of defense, burning resources and accelerating cellular aging. Specifically, loneliness has been shown to accelerate telomere shortening. Telomeres are the protective caps on the ends of your DNA strands, like the plastic tips on shoelaces, and their length is one of the most reliable biological markers of cellular aging. Research from Brigham Young University found that lonely older men show telomere shortening equivalent to an additional 5 to 8 years of biological aging compared to socially connected men of the same chronological age. 5 to 8 extra years of cellular aging. That is what isolation costs you at the level of your DNA. Men living alone face a unique and compounding challenge here. Research from the University of Michigan's Institute for Social Research found that older men, unlike older women, tend to have dramatically fewer social connections after retirement and spousal loss, because men historically relied on their partners as their primary social architects, while women tend to maintain broader friendship networks independently. Men report their wives as their sole confidant again and again across studies. When that relationship ends through death, divorce, or distance, many men find themselves in a form of social poverty they don't even have the vocabulary to describe or seek help for. I want to tell you about a patient named Thomas, 77, a former engineer from Cincinnati, Ohio. Thomas lost his wife 4 years before I met him. His children lived in different states. He was sharp, self-sufficient, and proud of his independence. But Thomas had also been averaging fewer than 2 meaningful social interactions per week for over 3 years. His inflammatory markers, specifically interleukin-6, a chemical signal of chronic inflammation in the blood, were elevated to a range typically seen in men a decade older. His sleep was poor, his appetite was diminished. He'd lost 11 pounds without trying. He told me he was fine. He was not fine. We didn't put Thomas on medication. We prescribed social contact the way we would prescribe any other treatment, with specificity and intention, Thomas joined a weekly group at a local hardware store running a free woodworking clinic for retirees, not because woodworking was the point. Connection was the point. Within 6 months, Thomas had regained 7 of those 11 pounds as lean muscle. His inflammatory markers had dropped significantly. And he told me something I still think about. "Doc, I forgot what it felt like to matter to people." The practical guidance here isn't vague. Research published in the American Journal of Public Health identifies the minimum threshold for social connection that protects against the biological effects of loneliness. At minimum, 3 to 5 meaningful social interactions per week, in person or by phone or video call, with people who know you by name and actually care about your answer when they ask how you are. Frequency matters. Regularity matters. 1 long conversation a week is less protective than 5 brief ones spread across the week, because your nervous system needs consistent signals of social safety to regulate the inflammation response. And the synergy here touches everything else on this list. Social connection regulates cortisol, which strengthens your circadian rhythm from number 5. It improves appetite and turns protein eating into a shared, pleasurable experience, addressing number 4. It reduces the elevated evening stress hormones that destroy deep sleep architecture from number 3. It provides motivation and accountability for the resistance training in number 2. Social connection isn't just one health factor among 5. It is the biological foundation the other 4 rest on. If you take only one thing from this video, let it be this. Your relationships are not separate from your health. They are your health, encoded in your genes, expressed in your blood, and written into the length of your DNA. I want to close by speaking to you directly, man to man, doctor to patient, human being to human being. Living alone does not have to mean living at a disadvantage. It does not have to mean decline, isolation, or invisibility. The research I've shared today is not a verdict. It is a map. It shows you where the dangers are, so you can navigate around them with intention and intelligence. Every one of the 5 facts we covered is actionable starting tomorrow morning. Morning sunlight, protein distribution, deep sleep protection, fast twitch strength training, and the deliberate, courageous act of staying connected to the people who make your life meaningful. The men I have seen thrive into their 80s and 90s are not the ones with perfect genetics, the most money, or even the best doctors. They are the ones who decided, consciously and sometimes stubbornly, that their life was worth investing in, that it was not too late, that each morning was a biological opportunity. You are not too old to change your sleep. You are not too old to build muscle. You are not too far into solitude to reach back out toward connection. It is never too late. I have seen this truth again and again across thousands of patients, and I am telling you with the full weight of my clinical experience. The rest of your life can still be the best chapter of your story. If this video gave you something today, one fact that surprised you, one change you're going to make, one person you're going to call, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We are here every week with content built specifically for older adults who refuse to accept the standard narrative of aging. Leave a comment. Tell me your age, which of these 5 facts hit hardest, and about someone like Thomas, Raymond, or Walter in your own life. I read everyone, and your words shape what we make next. See you in the next one.